Do you think for a new player trying, or maybe an experienced player looking for a new job, do you think the tanks were given enough flash to pull somebody towards them over Sage and Reaper, which are going to be obviously the new shiny toys?
So I think we were given a fair bit of flash. I think the thing that will help in addition to the flash is that anybody that's made it to this point in our videos, I will say, remember that the queue time for tanks will be that when you log in, it says your dungeon's already ready. Like, you will not have even opened up the menu to select a dungeon, and it's already going to be like, we're waiting on you. Like, it.
People are probably going to pay you to run a dungeon.
Yeah. So, so I will say that they are flashy, they feel good, they look good, and they are going to get incredibly fast queues. They are going to be the adventurer in need. The adventurer in need is my prediction. The adventurer in need's going to get those sweet, sweet early materia tokens or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
That's going to be worth 90
gil bonuses,
gil.
experience bonuses.
And so leveling up your 4 tanks from 6.0 to 6.1 is a very reasonable goal for people even that intend to main another job in raids long term. If you plan on leveling all your jobs, getting your tanks out of the way from 6.0 to 6.1 should be a very doable thing for people that primarily play this game.
And all of your tanks are going to share gear with each other. Maybe different materia, but you can't say the same for, like, melee, for example.
Right. Right. And like, honestly, the gap between a sub-optimized materia set for warrior for the other tanks, it's not that suboptimal unless you're running an abacus. Like, it's not that. Yes, it is suboptimal, but like, it's not. It's not like red mage versus black mage, right? Like, where spell speed just feels totally.
Oh, where your rotation breaks.
Yeah. So like,
no, that's not going to happen.
There's preferences on tanks, but you're talking about optimization, not like just literally is it valid.
You will clear the fight. You will clear the fight, no matter what.
You could probably clear it without materia slotted. If you're going into extremes or savage, please don't. But it could probably get done.
That's true.
Please don't. So I think I think there is enough here to draw people who have an interest. I don't think there's enough people here to draw people who didn't have interest. As opposed to Summoner, I think there's a lot of people who didn't consider Summoner, didn't consider ever healing, and are now looking at Sage, didn't ever consider Melee and are now looking at Reaper, where they're not just drawing from within their demographic, they're pulling people outside of their demographic into their role.
Right.
And Tank does not have that level of flashy. It will draw people who are interested in tanking at least a little, but if that seed is not there...
Paladin might have the best chance with the big swords.
And being in the trailer.
But they're also the poster child.
The poster child, right.
Of course.
Right. For the fact that Shadowbringer said that Dark Knight was the poster child, I will tell you, having played MSQ, you're missing out if you didn't do your 5.0 story on a warrior. That story was written for a warrior.
That story was written for a warrior, right down to the T. 100%.
I played all the way through. I'm like, I hope everybody else had fun playing my game, but this game was written for me. So I felt for the fact
Warriors
that
felt pretty good the whole way around, though.
So I think we were the bottom tank when people were parsing us. A fair bit of Shadowbringers.
Yeah,
but
they were buffed recently. They got what they needed, and they were never not able to clear.
No. And like, people, they're flavored. So like, people have always appreciated warrior, even if it was suboptimal. Sure. It's fun. It's fun to invite a Felcleave to a party. So
Home Gang's going to be awesome.
Home Gang is the winner.
So
Home
nice.
Gang is the Home Gang made up more ground for what it does compared to any other ability on the tanks, in my opinion. Nothing else.
I would not be surprised to see longer tank busters now, like multi-hits or something that warrants the 10 seconds.
Now that everything is 10 seconds, it did make me wonder, are they going to tune it tighter? Right? Are they going to give us 9 seconds of hits where you're like, there isn't a lot of room?
They did that in Shadowbringers. At the beginning, you remember Home Gang was short. It was 6 seconds. Then they made it 8 because you couldn't just invuln through all of E4 Titans tank busters. You couldn't do it. You had to mitigate one, then Home Gang the rest. So anytime I see changes like this, it's immediately got me thinking, what do they have planned?
Yeah. Now that we've finished up talking about all the tanks, I will say we have a lot of self-heal.
We have a lot of self-heal, a lot of party heal.
And
a lot.
And healers, as a counterpoint, dropped their cast times on their damage to 1.5 seconds. So for a game that says healers don't need to DPS, I do wonder if in Savage they're saying, screw it. Like, Healers need to be DPSing. We expect them
And
to
the other jobs
DPS,
need to heal a
and
little
the
bit.
other jobs need to help pick up the slack.
Yep,
Because, or there's just going to be more outgoing damage, which like E12 already felt like, how do you get a healer to pug E12?
that's true.
It already felt like, as of this recording, I haven't gotten my E12 clear. We made it to phase 2, and then Media Tour happened, and I haven't had a chance to step back in. And it
But you will.
feels like we're always waiting on a healer. Anytime we're setting up a group, it feels like we're always waiting on a healer.
And I could tell you because I did that fight on a healer in progression, and then I went back to tank, and I played healer and party finder as well. It's not fun because that fight is riddled with player mistakes and player errors, and some situations you can't heal enough to make up for it. It's just over. It's the final fight of the expansion, so that's to be expected. But how do you turn that into a fun environment? I think Sage is probably their answer, and giving heals to other jobs so they can help.
And what feels hard about it right now is, let's say we have a willing, patient, and good attituded healer in E12.
Sure.
But it's their first clear as well. If they are
Experience.
struggling, all I can do is try to keep a good attitude. And then every time they die, we wipe, and we have to line up and do it again. That's the best case scenario. But now, when we look back at the tank skill sets, and as a warrior, definitely my warrior skill set, there are ways I can help them. I can say, let me look at my mitigation and see if I can move some stuff around. You're struggling with this spot. Let me see if I can hold some stuff, and I'll see if I can help you out there. You're struggling to keep so-and-so up when they get marked. Let me see, let one of the tanks see if they can take care of that for you.
And that's like the worst feeling when you can't, right? You're just like, I just have to watch you do your best. Please save us.
Right.
And that's it.
Right. Where it's this very Copperbell Mines moment where we're all watching one person do the fight. And if they can't do it, we all just die. And people are like, oh, they're blaming me. We are or we aren't. It doesn't matter. Like, because even if we're not, you still feel like that if you're that one person. It sucks being that person.
Sure.
So
And you're like, it's always my fault. But now that's not true.
I think
And that's nice.
it's really nice that tanks are going to be able to help out, because sometimes there are fights where, like you said earlier, the bosses center themselves, or the bosses are just locked to a side of the arena. There's no positioning. Mitigation is already predetermined because I have to save it for a big tank buster coming. So effectively, I'm just a melee DPS. And as somebody who has agreed to take on a very instrumental role in the party, it feels very frustrating to say, I came here to accept additional responsibility, and I have no way of accepting it during this phase. And so giving me some self-heal makes me feel like, okay, there's something for me to improve at, because in my opinion, after every wipe, I always ask myself, what could I have done better? How could I have gotten cleaner to that point? Because I'm always on the journey to get better, because I have never had a perfect pull, ever. Not even one. And so, I'm always
and your
seeking
journey
that
doesn't
improvement.
stop at the correct rotation, right? I would say saving a run, right? If something's going badly and you could save that, that's an improvement too. And sometimes your healers die. What happens if both your healers die and you need heals to go out? Now you could shake, right?
Right.
Put people back up a little bit.
Right.
You have options, and that's
Red mage
awesome.
because the other problem is, if both healers go down, even if you have a red mage and a summoner simultaneously pull them both up, they've now got
Party needs to
weakness.
Be alive.
They've now got weakness.
No mana.
And so they've got no mana. They're doing 25% less healing. So, even if they're back up, you've got to help them cover that window, especially if when they went down, there's a lot of damage about to be incoming. So it's like,
What happens if they died to Shiva and you're about to go into Titan?
Right. Let me pop my shake. And so I think there's a lot here that tells me that tanks are going to be able to, when there's not a standard tanking definition thing to do, there isn't positioning, there isn't grab enmity. They've made enmity largely solved since Shadowbringers. There's something else for me to do. And
It's true.
I appreciate that. I think AoE rotations across every job got cleaner. And so now it's easier for me to say, this is my single target rotation, this is my AoE rotation, this is the transfer point. When I move to those, I have those as just baseline memorization that I can practice on a dummy. Now my applicable skill has more room. I think the self-heal is a massive improvement in areas that I can get better as a tank. It'll be hard to gauge.
I wonder if we're going to see a lot of multi-boss fights now. We have all these heals and mitigations. would be nice. And this time around, we're getting all unique things to Final Fantasy, aren't we? To Final Fantasy 14.
Getting
I
all
believe
original.
they said this raid set. Yes. What I should say is we're not going to get any callbacks to other Final Fantasies for this raid set.
Original does not mean that there is not fan service. It just means there won't be a literal import.
That's true. Well, like Gaia was, like
right,
P2
right,
of E12.
Right, where there can be
but that's
massive
still fine because it gives them
references.
creative freedom.
There can be references to the music, there can be references to boss design, there can be reference to mechanic design. It can also reference other previous Final Fantasy fights, so it can do a lot of fan service. And as the finale, I would expect the 6.0 stuff to definitely do that. The 6.1, I think what's important about original is that it gives them a new...
They get a clean slate to just open their story.
Right, because they... Right, if you have to write a story, well, 6.0 is the biggest set of pages. 1 through 5 are smaller sets of pages. And so that gives them a place to kind of tell us a story about the types of mechanics we need, the types of bosses we need, narratively what we need. So I think having original design will be really important. And I do think that it's a place to start to tell us what's going to be expected of players in this next chapter of Final Fantasy. Are we expected to be better players? And if so, how are they going to help us get there? Because you can't just say, okay, everybody's got to be better, and if not, quit. Like, you gotta help me get there.
They did that in Heavensward, and it didn't go well.
There were some moments where things were a little tight week one if you wanted to clear your MSQ.
They've come a long way, though, you know? And even Shinryu was a hard one for people, I think, in Stormblood. Shinryu was a difficult one. And even Final Steps of Faith at the end of A Realm Reborn. They've had their moments where things are difficult, and their moments where things are not. And that's fine.
My issue has always been the lack of consistency there, right? That you go from an easy thing to a hard thing. How do you expect that? So as a final thought, what would you say to somebody who's considering tanking for the first time and has made it this far into our video here?
Like saying you're like, you have like tanxiety, or you're just excited to tank, because those are two different mentalities. Like you're saying maybe somebody wants to tank for the first time, they're a little nervous, and like what could I say to help them a little? Because I think if you have the motivation to want to tank, you're probably already diving in a little. So let's say you're nervous. Okay, let's say you're nervous and you want to tank. You're like, all right, what do I do? If you're running dungeons, maybe try running them with trusts, because the NPCs aren't going to judge you, and you can learn to do things at your own pace, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, jump into normal raid roulettes. Just get in there, wet your feet. You know, it's not too hard. It's relatively even paced, and there aren't really hardened rages. Then get a little more confident, start running into, maybe you run an alliance roulette. A lot of people are like, I don't want to tank in front of 23 other people. They're all gonna be watching me. So you could maybe start doing that, or shy away, go into extremes. Maybe try your hand at a first savage. If you do that, I recommend hit a training dummy until your rotation is in the back of your mind. You're not even thinking about it. That way, when you're in the but you're finally facing the boss, right? Mm-hmm. Now you could focus on mitigation. Where do I put this on this buster? How do I help this player? How do I move the boss? Your rotation, when to fell cleave, when to use your burst strike, that should be a very low priority, because you should already know what to do. I'm not saying doing damage isn't important. It just should already be done. Like, you should already have that part down pat. And I know hitting a training dummy is like doing homework. You don't want to do it, but it'll help. It'll help a lot. Okay. And then play Warrior. Warrior's awesome. Warrior's awesome. You don't have a lot of buttons to hit, so you do get those chances to move the boss, to help your mitigation, to heal. Warriors can do it all this time around, right? They could do it all. Yeah. It's going to be awesome. So give Warrior a shot. And if you don't want to, that's fine. Play what you want. If one of them speaks to you, you want to have big swords coming from the sky, do that. You want to play any of the 5 tanks, you can go for it. Any of the 5 tanks. You want to play Dark Knight, do that. Paladin, sure. Gunbreaker, Warrior, maybe Dragoon, whatever you want to do.
Somebody's got to tank that floor. They're going to be sharing gear with Reaper, which I'm excited they have a buddy, a partner in crime. That's a good change.
That's super exciting, because if one of them is really strong and one of them is not so strong, you have the chance to swap between them. And that's going to be awesome. Or maybe you just want to switch. Reaper's going to go very fast at certain points, and that's great. And Dragoon does not go very fast.
Looks good.
I'm gonna like it. Oh, you know what? Something we didn't even mention. Paladins and Dark Knights actually got a huge party buff. In that, if you're playing with a red mage, their party buff is now going to buff their damage. So before it didn't affect their magic damage, but now it will.
Oh.
So they got a couple of buffs. Warrior still has to deal with direct hit crits, but your onslaughts and your upheavals are good. So I think overall we're actually going to see tanks probably less bullied in like farm parties. You know, people have a lot of late tier parties like they do right now, and you're like, I only want certain jobs. I don't think we're going to see that as much.
Good. Good. There's
I
been a
hope.
lot.
Don't do that.
There has been more players getting into ultimates for the first time, savages for the first time than ever before.
Yes.
And this
so
is
be nice
because
to
there are
them.
players coming in from games where they do have a top-end skill set and they want to stretch that here. There have been players coming in who are fans of people that they think, well, this guy's not good at the game and they can clear, so maybe I can too. There have been more parties up. There have been more people showing off the gear. There has been more people that are hyped about the game. And they're like, I want to play, but I don't have anything to do. What can I do?
And then
I've
when
never done
Endwalker
that.
comes out, even more.
And so I think, and then the number one advice I've seen to the people who are still on the fence at the end of Shadowbringers, that out of all the people, I just said so many people are doing it, there's still a number of players that are like, they want to and they don't know how to get started. The advice I've seen is that the easiest time to try Savage or Extreme for the first time is the beginning of an expansion when everybody doesn't know what's going on, because you can't
100%.
you can't be the moron in the group because we're all morons. So that I think that is a really good time to try, and you can try it on whatever job you want because you just leveled through MSQ as that job and you're ready. And so I think Savage and Extreme is very attainable. Tanking is very attainable. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be in 14. I said this going into Shadowbringers,
Really
and I was worried that I wouldn't.
It doesn't even matter.
I said
Every
I was
party's going to have
worried.
somebody new.
I was really worried that Endwalker I wouldn't feel as hyped
Really?
because Shadowbringers was so hyped. Like on the scale of average to amazing, Shadowbringers was so high that there's still very, very good games that come in below it. And I was worried that Endwalker was going to be a very good game, but because it wasn't the greatest of all time, I wasn't going to appreciate it. And right now, I'm literally concerned that I'm too hyped, that I'm playing too much because like.
Have you enjoyed each expansion over the other so far?
No, Stormblood was really easy for me to take breaks from. I had a busy job at the time. I was working a lot. I was learning a lot about content creation. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. So it made me enjoy the game differently. I think Frosty's talked on that a number of times.
As opposed to Heavensward, where you...
Heavensward, I legitimately enjoyed the game. ARR, ARR was coming over. And so
ARR was new, right? Everything was built.
I was playing with legacy players, and I was excited to learn about the thing they were already passionate about because they were all 1.0 players. And so, like, I was just kind of along for the ride in 1.0. 2.0, I really got, I mean, in 2.0, in 3.0, I really got my feet. This is my game. And, like, there were times that they were like, where do I need to go? And I'm like, oh, yeah, the quest is over here. Like, there were times I knew things. And Stormblood was a time, like, I was also really busy in my life. And so there were patches where I just, I think
couldn't play.
For how much work the game's covered, the other day on stream I did something for the first time. And they're like, what do you mean you've never done this trial fight? And it was like, I hadn't done Odin. And they're like, what do you mean you never did it? And it's like, I just missed it. Like, I was working 70 to 80 hour weeks, and like, I just missed it. And once you miss it in an MMO, there's always something new. So once you miss it, you don't always go back. Sometimes it just
I never finished Hildebrand. There's a Yojimbo fight. I've never done it.
So, there's going to be new Hildebrand next expansion. So everybody who hasn't needs to go finish it. So I think I'm still missing the very end of it.
I think another piece of recommendation I would say is I think they encouraged us to finish the Omega raids, at least the normals.
So Yoshi P said finish every job quest, every trial, every raid, and make sure you've refreshed yourself on MSQ, which is just like a 900-hour task. The writer of Endwalker said make sure you have done specifically. Now you have to do Crystal Tower, and said specifically make sure you've done the Omega raid series. There was one more. Maybe Trials. There was one more, but Omega was listed.
Oh, we saw Omega in the benchmark trailer, so it's a safe bet to say that they're strongly hinting.
And then for people that want
it's going to be canonical,
and then people who kind of read ahead, like from the same author, people have been going and redoing their Dark Knight questline and the Rogue questline because she wrote both of those, and so they've been going back and kind of like, hey, this book's coming out, let me go read some of that author's earlier works just because I'm excited. It's not necessarily going to have anything to do with it, but if you just
but it's
you just want
nice
to get yourself in it's a nice thing to do.
I would not be surprised if you can't do some MSQ later if you haven't done the Omega raids, like Crystal Tower.
I'm still not caught up on MSQ. Shadowbringers was my first MSQ experience. I skipped MSQ up to Shadowbringers, and Shadowbringers, Yoshi P said at the beginning, before Shadowbringers, to anybody that skipped MSQ, used a booster, is new, we have written Shadowbringers to not only be enjoyable by people who have been caught up on the story, but by new people. So he openly invited Shadowbringers to be your first MSQ experience, and while I was told by the player base that was wrong, I was told by the director and producer of the game that that was okay. And so I did that, and I enjoyed it. And I have been replaying through MSQ, and I'm coming up on the end of ARR, and I've just been busy. So I'm still missing Heaven's Word, I'm still missing Stormblood, and so I'm going to go through Endwalker blinder than I had hoped, and then I'm gonna go back and replay.
Where are you in the official MSQ? Not the replay, but your actual MSQ.
Like
you said
main?
You're not caught up yet?
On my main, of course. Yeah, main's done. I've done everything Shadowbringers. I've done all my side quests. I've done all. I've done.
You had a patch 5.3 solo instance where they essentially walked you kind of through everything that's happened, and that's enough. That's all you need.
So yes, and actually that was the. If I got to pick one thing in the game to make a savage version of,
that would be
that scenario is what I want a savage version of. If I got to pick one single player instance to make a savage version of in the entire game, the 5.3 scenario is it.
You know what I wanted a team fight out of? There was a Heaven's Ward solo instance at the end of the expansion where you went to a grand battle with all the grand companies. I thought that was so cool.
Okay. I remember enjoying the battle portion of leveling through Heaven's Ward. I remember enjoying that as a questing experience compared to ARR, where it was a lot of, if you were skipping story like I was, it was a lot of, could you go talk to that person? Cool. Could you come back? Oh, wait, I need you to go tell them one more thing. And then
I did not enjoy the leveling, though. We were capped a lot and had to run dungeons multiple times in Heaven's
That didn't bother me. That didn't bother me at all.
It didn't. It bothered me because I was trying to get to end level. I was a Dragoon for Heaven's Ward. That was very exciting.
So as a WoW player, I was used to being gated. And so,
but you know what? They said for Endwalker that we're going to actually have to maybe use alts to get enough experience from the MSQ because there's going to be so much of it given to us. So use some experience on your alt jobs. Maybe level up Warrior and Gunbreaker.
It's tough.
Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out.
Well, this last one's gone long, and that's just a nice little treat for everybody who clicks on the best of the tank videos. I am really excited that all of the tanks feel good.
Me too.
You know, I like to poke fun, but I hope that every aspect of the game is enjoyable. Even the parts that I don't enjoy, it would be a bummer that somebody spent time developing that for nobody to like it. So I love the idea that every job could be enjoyed by somebody. Having played all the jobs, I do think there's somebody for everybody. Looking at all the people responding to the leaks that they think they've got the full story. Scholar is still getting kind of crapped on. I think they're missing out on how valuable Scholar is going to be.
I did try playing Scholar, and I enjoyed it. It's not super flashy, but it never really has been.
No.
And that's not its identity, and that's fine. And I mean, I'm really happy that this game does such a good job of balance and makes it so that way not only the new jobs are nice, right? Like the old jobs, like you're getting to play Warrior, and you're excited for it, and it's a job that's been out since the beginning.
Scholar will have trouble getting slotted in the early tiers against Sage. Even if it's objectively better. Even if the potencies on the 19th come out and Scholar is objectively better, people will still say Sage is better because they feel it's better.
Right. And Sage because they're going to be like, oh, you know what? It's just like I get to attack while
There's
I'm healing.
lasers. Yeah. No, people said it was strong when we saw the animations and had no flyover text, no tooltips, no potencies, no stats.
People said it was strong when they just announced that they were releasing it, and all we saw was the character art. Right? Like we just saw the concept, and they were like,
"Oh, she looks.
It's got guns.
She looks strong. Yeah, she's. I bet it's the best. It's like based on what? Like I hope you're right, but like
based on it being the best.
What? Yes. I mean, people said the same about Final Fantasy 16. They showed us a trailer and they're like, that game looks amazing. I'm going to really enjoy the story of that game. But I'm not saying you won't, but like, based on what? Like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I don't see any evidence.
I said it about Gunbreaker simply off of the reason that I wanted it to be good. That was it. That was my only logic was I think that looks cool and I want it to be the best, and it's the best.
It says gun.
And then it was the best.
It has
so we manifested it. Yeah, Gun Sage. I'm excited. I'm excited. We don't have long. We don't have long to go.
No. No. Well, all of my guides are going to link to your stuff for whatever you publish.
Thank you.
We'll see what you get out because you're much more thorough than me.
It doesn't matter. We're all excited. We're
So,
all hyped. And the information, like you said, is across all the creators. Everybody's going to cover everything you could possibly want.
There is every point of view that could be there. Yes, some point of views we would love to have more sources for that point of view. More would be better. But at least each category of player, I believe, got at least one creator attempting to do their best to represent that group. It was a much more diverse group, and a lot of that was this was an enormous media tour. Of course, I would love for them to. They tripled it. From what I can tell, the numbers basically tripled. I would love for them to triple it again next time. But from what I can tell, they doubled it or tripled. It's a massive increase in the number of creators over last time. And by creators, I mean outlets, like press outlets. There's players that play other games. There was that last time too. We had a person who's primarily known for Warframe. We had a person that's so we had some diverse views last time, but we have more of them this time. There was an entire category of players who are basically still sprouts, and so
I wasn't there last time, but it seemed like there was a lot of staff helping us as well, and they were working really hard. There was like almost a staff person for every one of us.
So that's what I could say pre-media tour was people are like, why isn't it more people? And I said, well, I haven't been, but what I can say, this was before we even knew if we were invited. So I said, I don't even know if we'll be invited, but I can tell you that if they limit it, it will be because when Brian and I were lucky enough to go to the Shadowbringers one, they were incredibly hands-on. And I thought with the virtual, how are they going to be as hands-on? And they were every bit as hands-on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They were there every step of the way except when there was lunch.
When we were playing digitally, we had 2 people in our Discord with us that were just basically sitting there watching us play. And at one point, our sage died and goes, God, I hope nobody saw that. And the staff member goes, I saw that.
I even think I recall at one point somebody wanted to run the dungeon, but nobody else was available to. And I think one of the staff members was allowed to run it with them so that they could get in there and do it. And that's...
Just hopped in.
They were working really hard.
Hopped in.
And they were double checking our information, making sure we had everything we needed. It was good.
Unbelievable thank you. So at the end of the longest of the tank videos here, thank you, Square. That was an incredible tour. I hope you continue to do them. Even if you don't include Ren and I in the next one, the people that get to go will be very lucky to be included, and it's a wonderful event.
It's true. It was a fantastic time.
Cool. Well, that's the end of the tanks.
I think we had a good time.